is affecting us because of having the lower occupancy rates. So our goal is to not only promote Columbia to tourism, is to bring in leisure travelers so that they can come in, spend their time here through the different things that we have to offer, the restaurants, the attractions, the outdoor activities, those sort of things. And then we also focus on meetings and conventions and making sure that we're bringing in those groups that are going to, come in for, 3 to 5 days, host a meeting, whether it's in the convention center, the hotels, host a sporting event, the different things that will help make an economic impact in the area by using the hotels and staying in the restaurants. And then in addition to that, we do a little bit with helping the business community in terms of business travel and making sure that those people that are coming here, whether they're visiting the State House or Fort Jackson for business reasons, that they know what there is to do while they are here. So it could be, they need to entertain the fort commander and they want to take him to Hall's Chop House for a good steak dinner or something. We're making sure that those business travelers know what there is to see and do. So as I mentioned, one of our primary goals for the organization is conventions and meetings. The meetings business throughout the country is obviously a very large economic impact for the entire nation, not just Columbia and not just the state of South Carolina. So you can see on the slide here that prior to COVID-19, and again, these numbers are old. I haven't received any updated numbers yet because it usually takes a while to do all of the surveys. But you can see there were over 1.9 million meetings held just in the United States back in 2016. So these aren't even global numbers. This is just the United States, and the economic impact of $845 billion. Now, I can tell you that I know in 2019 that the meetings industry has actually exceeded $1 trillion in an economic impact. It is one of the largest employment sectors throughout the United States. And here specifically in the state of South Carolina, tourism and meetings and leisure, that industry is actually second only to agriculture. So it is a very important means for all of us here in the state, not just those people that are working in the industry itself, but even those that live here, because the more tourism we have and the more economic impact we have, it actually reduces our personal taxes for residents that may not be in the industry, but are benefiting from the industry and the amount of revenue it brings in. For Columbia, the 155 meetings that I mentioned here is actually through the CVB, through the DMO alone. That does not include the average about 360 meetings at the convention center, and then another 100 meetings or so that the Sports Council brings into the region. Again, our organization represents about $22 million in economic impact. So again, it's a very important industry for this region. And again, these are all pre-COVID numbers. So what has happened to us during COVID? As you all are familiar, and especially with those of you that just at the university alone have been affected. I know my son, who's a freshman at USC, all of his classes are online for some reason. He didn't get any in-person classes, but it has affected not just things like the university or the restaurants, but obviously it has affected our economy and affected our industry, the tourism industry specifically. So when we're talking meetings, you can see here over 72% of the meetings throughout the United States were canceled in 2020. What we are seeing right now is a lot of these events are being moved virtual, just like we are doing right now with this presentation instead of me being in person. And we are also hearing of a hybrid situation where they are doing a limited amount of people in person, and then the remainder of the meeting is actually being virtual. In fact, I'm sending 3 staff members next month to Orlando, where that is specifically happening at a meeting and conventions trade show called Connect, where I will have people in person, but then some of the people will be virtual as well. And then you can see only 5% have actually rescheduled. So we've got a large portion of about 50% of our meetings that have been affected that have not gone virtual and have not actually rescheduled for a future year. A lot of them are kind of in a wait and see what's going to happen with this COVID-19 and whether they will have the meeting in 21 or whether it will actually be canceled for 2 years in a row. For us here in Columbia, you can see that 90% of our events actually canceled, really affecting the convention center specifically. In fact, from mid-March through the second week of June, there was not a single event held at the convention center, which April and May are two of the busiest months that we typically have every year. So it has greatly affected our industry and our convention center here locally. Our economic impact based on estimates has fallen 95%. So where my organization represented 22 million, we barely crossed the $2 million mark in economic impact due to COVID-19 specifically. Now we are working with these organizations to try to reschedule. We are trying to help them understand, what we are doing from a safety standpoint to help, make events happen. And we're working with the governor's office on a daily basis so that they know what we can do and how many events that we'll be able to handle while maintaining social distancing. We do follow the mask ordinance that the city has put into place. And we have actually recently purchased the bio thermometer where it's almost like an iPad and people actually walk in front of it and it checks for temperatures. So we are trying to make sure that we do have a lot of safety measures in place. We did receive the DHEC approval for our safety measures, and that was what did allow us to kind of reopen the convention center and start hosting meetings again. Currently, the state of South Carolina still has a maximum meeting capacity of 250 people. However, for our organization, we've worked with the governor's office and have actually received an event waiver where, as long as we are following those social distancing standards, we are able to actually host larger events. So over the last few weekends, we've actually had events, upwards of 500, 600 people, because we can maintain social distancing within the building while still having an event of that size. So it's kind of helped us rebound a little bit. However, we still have a very long way to go to get back to our pre-COVID numbers. Again, meetings and convention recruitment is one of the main things that we do. We travel throughout the country. Each year we attend between 20 to 25 trade shows where we are meeting specifically with the meeting planner for the different types of organizations, whether it's a corporate meeting planner, whether it is an association meeting planner, a sport event planner, or we've got what we call independent planners that are doing more of your non-traditional events. So it might be like a Comic-Con, or it might be an unusual sporting event that's not traditional, like a a soccer or a baseball tournament. It might be more like a Quidditch or something along those lines. So we are taking the message of Columbia in all of the facilities that we have to offer, the hotels, the meeting spaces, the sporting fields, and we are taking those messages directly to the meeting planners and trying to convince them, obviously, to host one of their future meetings here in the Columbia market. We usually partner also with hotels and trying to, they travel with us so that we are bringing a unified message, and so that the meeting planner is not receiving, a phone call or an email, from 5 or 6 different people. This really is, the face-to-face is really the best way for us to obtain a meeting and convention within the city. And actually, no matter what city you're marketing, that really is the best way. The social media channels, the older way of telephones and emails, those things really, while they are maybe a good way to initially make contact with a meeting planner, unfortunately, they are not what's really going to lead you to booking the business. This is a very relational industry, and they really like to be able to meet you face to face. They like to get a sense of, your honesty about the city, knowing that you're not just a used car salesman trying to sell them on, anything about the city, but really and truly caring about their organizations. One of the best ways that we do that is we work with the meeting planners to try to understand the attendees to the conference and what they like to do when they are not in the conference. So if the conference session closes at 5 p.m., what are your attendees going to do the rest of the day? Do they like to go to the attractions? Do they like to do outdoor activities? Do they like to eat? Do they like to drink? We will find out what the attendees like to do, and then that's how we will try to sell them, on the city. So we've had groups that have come into town where we might plan, a bar hop, and they're going to, 8, 9, 10 different bars throughout the city because it's just giving them an opportunity to experience what the city. We've done restaurant dine-arounds where they'll go to a specific restaurant. They might get a little appetizer, get a little taste for that restaurant, and then they get on the shuttle and they go to the next one. So again, it's trying to really help them understand the full opportunities that Columbia has to offer and meeting what the attendees are looking for. So once we're kind of that one-stop shop. So when a meeting planner wants to submit their RFP, their request for proposal for one of their future meetings, they'll send it to our organization, and then we represent the city. So we're that one voice. Once we receive the RFP, we will contact that meeting planner and we will say, okay, thank you for the RFP. What is most important to you? Is it, the distance from the convention center? Is it a certain brand of hotel? Is it, you want to be concentrated in downtown? Do you not want to be in downtown? Do you want to be more in a suburban location? So we ask these questions to try to find out exactly what the meeting planner is looking for, to host their meeting and so that they're successful. Once we have all those, we then will look at our resources and the different hotels and the different options that we have, and then we will send that RFP out on behalf of the meeting planner. We use a system, and in fact, the Cvent certification that she was talking about, we actually use Cvent as one of our lead generators. They're a great organization, and we do a lot of different work with them. But we will send it out, and then the hotels, the meeting venues, they will respond back to us. They will not contact the meeting planner directly. Again, we are that single voice, that one-stop shop. We will accumulate all of the responses, and then we will send it back to the meeting planner and review with them what the best options were. So usually we are receiving, the hotel room blocks, how many rooms that they will receive from the hotel each night. And for how many days. We will receive from them what the room rate will be. We will receive from them any specialty offerings, whether it is, a complimentary breakfast, whether it's, free parking, some of the different things that, will make that hotel stand out above just maybe a room rate. And then if the meeting planner is looking for a room rebate, we will also share with them how that is being built into their rate. So some meeting planners, that's how they make their money, is based on the room rebate. So if we've got $159 a night room rate, sometimes the meeting planners will receive $10 of that per room back to them, and that's how they make their money. So the hotel will receive a rate of actually about $149 by the time you remove like that $10 rebate. Again, we are negotiating all that on behalf of our local hotels and our local attractions, and then we'll take it back to the meeting planner. The meeting planner will, usually have something to either counter with or needs clarifications on, and then we will go back to the hotels and try to get those things clarified. So again, we are kind of the middleman in the process. We don't have any contracts specifically. Those are for each of the venues themselves and then signed by the meeting planner. But we are kind of negotiating all of those processes for both sides so that it's a win-win for everybody. Once the meeting is actually booked here, these are just some of the things that we offer complimentary as an organization. We'll provide our insider's guide, which is our visitor guide, promotional items that they can hand out to the attendees, and sometimes we might even order something specific. When we hosted the South Carolina firefighters, we purchased little stress balls that looked like little fire engines, just something cute that kind of aligned with the association. We'll put up banners around the city. Some of you may have seen these now and then, but it's just, again, something that's welcoming them to the city. We'll work at the airport to welcome them when they get off the plane and make them feel special. Again, as well as some other things like the hotel signs. And I already mentioned, we might do dine-arounds or pub crawls, those sort of things. So these are complementary things that we offer, and that's why it's beneficial for the meeting planner to work directly with us and not going directly to the convention center or going directly to like the hotel venue, because these are free and complimentary things that we can offer them. So when you talk about the travel industry as a whole, again, you're talking about an industry that is the second largest economic driver for our state, and then one of the largest top 10 in the United States. Again, this is not just meetings, this is the entire travel industry. So you can see here pre-COVID, about $2.5 trillion, 16.9 million jobs. You guys can read the screen, but some things that I wanted to point out is what has happened during COVID. When the United States, when we first had that major wave of unemployment and furloughs that hit because of COVID, 40% of all unemployment was somebody from the travel industry, which actually accounted for almost 50% of actual travel industry employees. So if you put that into perspective for a second, of all the unemployment that happened in the first phase of COVID, nearly 40% was the travel industry specifically. That is, I mean, and you can see here, estimating over $500 billion in lost revenue just for 2020. Now, what we are starting to see for 2021, because of the uncertainty of what's still going to be happening with the pandemic, the uncertainty because of a vaccine, even though we're hearing reports that a vaccine could be available by the end of this year, because there are still all of these uncertainties, even though individuals are starting to get more cabin fever and want to travel, we are actually finding that more meetings are still not necessarily postponing, they're just not making decisions. And so where we would normally already be filling up 2021 and working on 22 and 23, we are now finding that people are just waiting to make decisions. So we are starting to feel that impact for 2021. We did a recent research study taking a look at the effect of COVID on our next future years, and it kind of put it into perspective. We have 130 hotels in Columbia that represent 12,000 hotel rooms. Before COVID, our hotels were operating at 67% occupancy. Our hotels in downtown were running 77% occupancy. Both of those numbers in this industry are actually very good. 70% is usually that mark that hotels look for. So as a region, we were almost at 70%, and then downtown exceeded 70%. The first phase of COVID, we fell to 27% occupancy in the region from 66%. That lasted for about 2 months. And then we started to see that there was a quick bounce back where we jumped from 27% to about 50% occupancy once we started to see some things open up, once the governor kind of reopened the restaurants, even though there is that 50% mandate in the restaurants. But once they started seeing some things open, we jumped from 27% to 50%. But the last 2 months, we basically have stayed there. We've stayed at 50% occupancy. Now, unfortunately, we are projecting for 2021 that we are still going to be in the 50 percentile. It might be 55%, it might be 58%, but until group business, until meetings and conventions return at the rate they were pre-COVID, we are looking at still occupancy under 60%. And that is not just for Columbia, but that is actually nationwide. We need the meetings and convention business to return. We need the leisure travel to pick back up. That's actually where we are somewhat being saved right now, is most of our travel actually is leisure travel. And so we are being, on the weekends, we have a higher occupancy rate than we do during the week because we're not seeing the business travel. Normally for Columbia, that's actually opposite. Normally during the week, we're running 80% occupancy just because of the business travel. And then we're usually slower on the weekends without it. But right now it's actually reversed. So we need the business travel to pick back up so that we can return to being over 60% occupancy. But reports are saying it might not be until 2022 until we return near pre-COVID occupancy rates. So what have we done locally to try to help, sustain the local tourism market? Excuse me a second, I need some water. So one of the things that a DMO specifically can do in helping, the local market sustain the tourism is trying to get out the messages of what is open, whether it's the attractions, whether it's the restaurants, what their hours of operation are. Are they, do they have any specific guidelines? Is it not just the mask ordinance, but is it like the zoo, for instance? When they first reopened, you had to make an appointment to go to the zoo. You could not just show up and buy a ticket. So it's making sure that, we can help them, get these messages out. Typically, a DMO is not responsible for marketing locally. In fact, we are usually required that all of our marketing has to be outside of 50 miles from the city that we are representing, because again, we are generating revenue by bringing people into the city. They stay here, they eat here, they play here, and then they leave and a new set of people come in. We're not making money by just helping out the local residents. However, during a pandemic, that is different because we know the people are not going to travel, or there is something preventing them from traveling. And so we need to ensure our local residents that they have the opportunities to get out and still enjoy the city and what we have to offer. So some of the things that we specifically took a look at, and I encourage each of you, if you haven't had the opportunity, go to our website, experiencecolumbiasc.com. A lot of great information that could even help you with your classes as you move forward. One of the things that we specifically do, and we promote them not just on our website, but we also push it through our social media channels, which again, if you're not following, I highly encourage it. On Instagram, Columbia SC is our handle, and we are using that to help push a lot of the messages, a lot of the new openings that are happening in the city, whether it's a new restaurant, it might be something new going on at the rivers, it might be something at the university. So we are using those channels to help push the messages out, and then the photography is just awesome. It's the photography that we are not paying for. It's photos that you all are taking. And then you're using the hashtag RealColumbiaSC to tag us, and then we re-put out that photo. And there's some great photos, and I compliment everybody for the photos they take within this city. But one of the things that we've done with our blogs, and we write a weekly blog, usually focusing on what there is to see and do over the weekend. And again, we publish this blog on the blog section of our website, and then again, we share it through our social channels. But one of the things that we did was we specifically changed the way we were writing blogs. Normally, the way we write a blog is to somebody that doesn't live here, and so we are very specific in the wording that we use because they might not know what 5 Points is, or they might not know where Rosewood is, and so we're very specific in how we write to somebody that doesn't live here, and trying to convince them why this is such a great place to come. But because we know those people weren't coming, we had to change up the way we were writing our blogs and started to write them to the locals specifically. So it was using local lingo, really highlighting local destinations that you all would know about that maybe a visitor doesn't, but trying to help you plan your day, plan your weekend by understanding what is open, encouraging you to get out and shop, whether it is in person or online, if these places have, online. And obviously, we went through a big period, even before you were allowed in the restaurants, where takeout was a big thing. And so we were writing not just blogs, but we were actually pointing out on our website those restaurants that were specifically having takeout, so that you knew who was still open and what was available. The other thing that we've done is, we expanded our trip itineraries and really tried to help highlight how things are safe within the city and what we are doing to make things safe. So not just the mask ordinance, but the encouraging social distancing, encouraging, the washing of the hands, encouraging, just trying to stay safe when you can. We all understand that this can be a challenge, especially when, you are out with a group of people and trying to have fun. And we just want to encourage that those things take place so that you are still having fun and so that we can still keep these businesses open. Because if we have, obviously a big uptick, then the governor could shut things down again. So we try to push these things so that everybody knows how safe you can still do activities within the city. The other thing that we changed was our communication. Kind of like with how we write blogs or how we do our trip itineraries, usually our communication out to the different meetings magazines, or just, magazines like Southern Living, those sort of magazines, is usually about, what you can do while you are here in Columbia. What does a weekend itinerary look like if you are visiting us? How can you bring your family, and what things are there to see and do? That's typically what our communication is, because again, we're trying to get people to come here. During the pandemic, we actually changed it. Again, we knew people weren't traveling. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to highlight things that were great about Columbia. So not necessarily things that you could see and do, but more unique things that you might learn about Columbia. For instance, pimento cheese. You'll see here, on the slide. Those of you might not know, pimento cheese was actually invented here in Columbia, South Carolina. So we like, to push that out, and we write a lot of stories about that. You can see here that, we have, 9 clever ways to use cream cheese. It was just a different and unique way of us staying in front of our visitors without necessarily pushing to get them here, but just to give them a little taste of what Columbia had to offer. So we didn't stop this. We didn't stop communicating. We just changed it because of the way that the pandemic was affecting us. We wanted to make sure that people knew what great things there are here in Columbia. So some of the messaging inspiration that the marketing team put together, and I apologize, look like my slide has cut out here. We started to change our messaging again. For those of you that are familiar, we are Real Columbia SC, and so we tried to play off of that and looked at real close, real soon. So that's the leisure messaging that we were trying to push out, trying to let people know, hey, we're all going through this. We want you to be safe. We recognize that one day we will reopen. It's close, it's soon, and then you'll be able to return to Columbia. Real meetings real soon. Hey, we're still there for you. We know that you're not going to host a meeting in 2020, but we can look at 21 and 22. It's close, it's soon. Let's get you here. Bring them a comfort level that we're looking for them. And then the same for the sports. You can't see it, but basically the same tone. So again, it's moving away from that instant, we want you here right now, and moving into we know it's not going to happen right now, but it's going to happen soon. And that was the messaging that we were trying to get across. We're actually still kind of in this phase of messaging. On our website, again, recovery messaging, it got a little blurry on me. I apologize when I did my screenshot, but you can see here, real travel, real safe. And what this part of our website, this is actually still on our website. And what this is, and you can kind of maybe see by the little icons there, but this is actually touching base on all of the things that we are doing locally that are trying to make things safe for you. It's not just the city ordinance. It's not just the mask. It's not just the social distancing or the washing of the hands. We actually went as far as reaching out to our partners, our hotel partners, our attraction partners, and finding out what they are doing at their specific locations, and then publishing them on our website. So for instance, if you went and you knew you were coming to town and you wanted to stay at the Hyatt Place, you could find out what the Hyatt Place is doing. The fact that after they clean a room, they are taping the door to let you know that nobody has been in that room since it's been cleaned. Once it's been occupied, it was 24 hours again before they would allow somebody to stay in that same room again. these are the things that we were trying to help promote locally to the visitors so they know how safe it is to come here. Again, these are all messaging that we had to change because this isn't stuff that we normally do. Nobody has a playbook for a pandemic. And so, a lot of this was on the fly trying to figure out what we were doing and what the messages really needed to be. Again, I mentioned we did not actually stop marketing. We reduced it and we kind of put a pause on it, but we wanted to still get the messages out there. So again, you can see some of the leisure banners here, the Congaree Park, real views real soon, real cheers real soon. Again, just trying our tag Real Columbia SC and trying to bring them a comfort level. And then of course, when you click on these, then obviously they go back to our website. These ones I think specifically went to our trip itineraries so they could see how they can plan a trip here in Columbia and still stay safe. And you can see some of the different areas, Raleigh, Greenville, Charleston, Atlanta, just some of the different places that we were actually pushing these out. TripAdvisor, we do a lot of geofencing and retargeting. Geofencing is, we are paying specifically for keywords that are being used in our area. So if somebody searches and they actually go to a Charleston website, the geofencing will actually retarget them back to Columbia based on an ad. If they click on an ad, it would bring them back to Columbia, even though they're on a Charleston website. So we do a lot of geofencing and retargeting to try to draw people that we know are looking within our area. Again, same messaging that we were using for leisure, we were essentially using for the meetings, just something to let them know that we are still here, we are still safe, and we want them to come back when the time is right. So some of the things that we've had to go through during this pandemic, we mentioned already the meeting size being capped at 250, although we do now have that waiver that allows us to go to larger meetings and sporting events. We still have to maintain the social distancing. In fact, the event that we have coming up, we know that the fire marshal will be on hand to make sure that we are maintaining social distancing because we will have about 700 people in the convention center. So that obviously has put challenges on us. It's also events that we used to fit. So let's say it was a 1,000-person meeting and they could comfortably fit us. Now, because of social distancing, they are now too big for us. And so they might now have to go to Charlotte or Atlanta, one of the bigger cities that has bigger meeting spaces because of the amount of space that we are required to put between the individuals. So we've lost out on that. And then yet we have gained some meetings that might be typically were smaller and only met in a hotel because they were too small for the convention center, might now meet in the convention center because of social distancing. We also have seen obviously the reduced restaurant capacity. Initially, as you know, restaurants were closed, it was takeout only. And then he did open it up to 50%. We are still at 50% capacity. You've seen a lot of restaurants have tried to get creative and find more outdoor space to increase their seating capacity so that they can continue to make their revenues. Unfortunately, we know of restaurants that have not made it through the pandemic. The capacity restrictions did not allow them to bring in enough revenues. So unfortunately, they had to go out of business. We are hoping that we don't see too many more. Unfortunately, it will probably still take place until they're allowed to have a full 100% capacity. I mentioned the decline in the hotel occupancy already. What I did not mention was that the majority of hotels in Columbia are actually operating with greatly reduced sales teams or greatly reduced staff in general. In fact, the Marriott, our largest hotel over on Main Street, a 300-room hotel, they are operating with a staff of really about 10 people when they normally employ 20, 25, 30 people, depending on the time of year. and they're about 10 people or less to operate that hotel. We have a lot of friends that have actually lost their jobs, unfortunately, in Columbia because of the pandemic and the hotels having to let people go. Our own organization, we've had a reduced budget. We are staring at about a 50% budget cut. Again, because the hotel occupancy is down, that's where we get our money. And with the hotels not performing, the revenues aren't there. And so our specific budget, has been cut. So we are trying to find a way to still do our job, to still bring residents here on a greatly reduced budget. So when we come out of this, how can we help, revive the economy? Again, there's no playbook for this. So we are trying to figure out, what can we do specifically? Obviously, our first focus is going to be on the regional drive markets. The research suggests that those that live within 300 miles is going to be your key target market. So we are already starting to market into what we've already done, like the Charlotte, Greenville, Charleston, Augusta, Savannah. We already market into those areas, but now we're going to add in, Atlanta, Raleigh. We're going to go into northern Florida. We might touch into a tip of Alabama, like Birmingham. Those markets that are going to be easy to drive here, and more comfort level with being in a car instead of getting on a plane. Even though I personally will tell you that it's actually extremely safe to fly, especially with the way that they circulate the air on airplanes. But that is what the research is suggesting. So we are trying to focus on those drive markets and trying to get them here. It might be one night, it might be 2 nights. Whatever we can get them here, that will obviously help build our economy again. Booking the meetings and conventions for future years. I mentioned we're already working on 21. We're trying to get 22, 23. There are other cities, the larger cities like Atlanta, LA, Chicago, they're booking stuff already into 2030, to try to rebuild their economies and get that base business on the books, so that as they get more stuff, it just builds up the amount of income that they're going to be bringing in. Again, using our social channels. This is really the best thing that that we are doing right now, is with whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, is really getting out there and promoting the great things that there is about the city. It's also the cheapest way of doing things, especially with retargeting and finding those individuals that want to be in a market like us and being able to feed them constantly with content. Alternate trip ideas, weekend getaways. Again, we're talking about that regional driver. It might be somebody in Atlanta that just wants to go to a slower paced, city and still get some of those big city offerings, but just in a slower paced city. It's going to take a while. I mentioned earlier, we are looking at, it might be 2023, maybe late 22, before we start to see, our hotels start to return and maybe some more restaurants, getting reopening. It's going to take a while, but it's also going to take comfort within the pandemic. And that's, I hate to say, but that might be when the vaccine comes on play before that comfort level comes into play. So just some of the things that we've done during the pandemic from an operating standpoint. First thing we did was we closed all our offices. We closed the convention center. We closed the visitor center, and we all started working from home. For a lot of us, this is something that is easy to do. The salespeople, it's easy to do. Myself as a director, fairly easy to do as long as I can still communicate with the team. Not so easy with those that are in event management. Obviously, their job specifically is to work on events. When you don't have events, you don't have a job. We were able, due to reducing our spending, putting a freeze on spending at the end of the year, and because I took the last few years to really build reserves, we were fortunate enough where we were able to keep our staff. We did have to let go some of the hourly staff that is more event-based. They usually only work when we have an event. But for your everyday Experience Columbia staff, we were able to maintain everyone, mainly because of the spending cuts that we did and because we had reserves. We instituted weekly Zoom and Microsoft Teams calls. The executive team, we met every day. With the rest of the staff, it was once a week. daily communication, just making sure that we knew what was happening. A lot of daily communication in the initial stages was what we were hearing from the governor's office, what we were hearing from the mayor's office, trying to stay on top of some of the new guidelines. And so it was a constant communication, through text messages, through, again, email, through Zoom calls, and just trying to make sure that we were all staying on top of each other. We did suspend marketing efforts. We did not stop. So if we had already purchased marketing, we allowed those to maintain. We didn't purchase any new marketing through the end of the year to try to save budget. We have now started to remarket again in the new year. We stopped all travel. As you can expect, most of those meetings were canceled anyway. And then the biggest thing that we did was we tried to encourage the staff. For those that may have experienced it like we did, when you're used to being in an office setting and all of a sudden you're working out of your house, those first few weeks, it might be great. You might be like, man, I could do this. This is awesome. And then you kind of start to miss, that face-to-face interaction with your coworkers. And it kind of gets a little daunting. And some people were screaming we want to come back to work. Some didn't want to come back to work. We were doing surveys, to find out the temperature of the employees on whether they wanted to return or not. And then we made the decision in June, or I'm sorry, just after Memorial Day to return to work. And then we instituted some things. So we still do daily temperature checks by the staff. Everybody has, hand sanitizers. We've got disinfectant sprays we do at the end of the day. We ask that you don't congregate with your coworkers, like in our little kitchen area, unless you have a mask on. So we are still trying to stay safe, but we have been back in the office now for a few months, and it's worked out well. And we've got a little bit of normalcy going back on. So again, no playbook, but we tried to do the best we can. The biggest thing was the communication standpoint and trying to understand what was going to make everybody feel comfortable and how, as an executive team, can we put these things in place so that we can be successful and continue to do our job and help bring visitors to the market. So it's been an interesting few months. Unfortunately, we are not out of the water yet. This thing unfortunately isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I ask you all to stay safe, but I encourage you all to continue to get out, keep going to the restaurants, keep going to the bars, keep, pumping into the economy, and, making sure that, we're all staying safe. And it will be, it might take a while, but we're there, and we've got college football coming up. So that's going to make us all feel better anyway. So thank you. Again, this was interesting just looking at my computer the whole time, but thank you. Hopefully you learned something today.
All right. Thank you so much. Do you have any question from student?
I just lost my screen here. I don't have any questions.
No, I mean the student.
Oh, okay.
Anyone? Okay, I have a. Okay.
I have one.
All right.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead. So, do you have an internship? Is that your question?
Oh, there we go. Hi.
Go ahead.
Miss. Yes. Question for new employees that were late to join y'all. What is the role that they have? What are some of the requirements? Like, how do y'all end up gaining your resources to promote certain things of the local entertainment and restaurants and stuff of Columbia that you advocate towards to your clients? Like, do y'all go foot to pavement and start just exploring, looking around for yourself, or you just end up digging down on a computer and doing your research? And is that like a big requirement to have your own repertoire of stuff around in the area that you promote to your clients?
Yeah, so big question. And so one of the things that we do, first of all, we're not a membership-based DMO. In fact, a lot of the DMOs are going away from that. So that means that essentially we are partners with everybody. My partnership manager oversees a database. I think she's upwards of 2,500, different partners. So we, not only are we, just kind of out, trying to find the different things. Obviously, we're reading, if you don't follow like a Cola Today does a tremendous job of really, trying to highlight what is coming in before a lot of people even find out, what's going in. But I'll be honest, a lot of what we rely on is feedback from, from you all. We want to hear, and that's why we always are asking people to, use our hashtag and tag us so that we can hear of, new things, especially if it's, like if you know of a great place for a hamburger that is just, it like you drive by it and it just looks like you might get food poisoning, but it might be the best, hamburger in Columbia. I'll be honest with you, there's a story for that. We can find a way to help, pitch and help sell, the story of that hamburger. In fact, one of the best hamburgers I've had is Steve's Hamburgers. And you would not even know. I would have never stopped there if somebody, hadn't told me about it. So we're relying a lot of word of mouth, and we really need to know as much as we can of what's happening in the destination, because we get so many unique requests from our clients that we need to have that information so that then we're sharing back with them. What we typically do is we won't push one person over another. Like, we don't have paid opportunities, so we won't push one business over the next. It will literally be us going back to our client and saying, here is all of these things that we have to offer for what you're specifically asking, and then they kind of make the choice.
Okay.
Any other question?
It looked like somebody asked in the chat about internships.
Mm-hmm.
And we do, right now, our internships are kind of on hold just because we're still trying to figure out, the working model that we currently have. Marketing usually has an internship. The convention center usually has an internship. The DMO and the Sports Council, we have not had an intern in a while. Main reason is we don't have space. Our offices are completely full, so we don't know where to put them. But we are always looking for the opportunities, and I highly suggest you just, submit to our human resources person. Her information is on our website. She keeps track of all the people that are interested in internships, so that when we do start looking for one, we have a list of them.
Okay. I have a question, Jason. Since you share a lot of great information about how devastated our industry because of COVID-19, and many of our students are graduating soon. So can you give us some kind of tips for them, what they have to do? Or
Yeah, it's, I'm going to try to be as encouraging as possible. My tip is going to be, obviously, the experience. Make sure you get the experience, before you graduate, like internships. Don't overlook the fact of having some sort of job in hospitality, whether it's working, front desk at a hotel, whether it's, my son is a host at Blue Marlin. It's getting some sort of experience. As an employer, we love the education component, but we need to know that you also have a work habit. And so, getting experience, and please find those individuals that will write letters of recommendation. There are so many people looking for jobs that if you can have somebody that, that will put out a great reference for you that we can trust, obviously that will help, go a long way. And the last thing is, I hate to say it, but I promote Columbia, but don't be afraid to move, because while there might not be, a job opportunity in Columbia or Charleston or Charlotte, there might be one in, Denver, Colorado, or Austin, Texas. This industry is notorious for, if you want to advance, you might have to be willing to move to other cities. I personally have lived in about 9 different cities in my time, and unfortunately, that's how you tend to grow on the ladder. But the industry will bounce back. Tourism is resilient. Everybody travels. There's always meetings. It might not be great right now. It will bounce back just like we did after 9/11 occurred. And then we saw some of the greatest years, the tourism has had. So keep in mind, it will bounce back. It just might take a little time.
Okay, great. And I apologize. I have to ask you before you present, but do you mind? I just recorded your presentation. Is it okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I forgot.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
All right. Anyone? Okay, my last question is, well, you talk about the request for proposal and then you receive a lot of, proposals from outside. What is the success rate of your business?
It's tough. Right now, well, actually, let's talk pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, if we received an RFP, our rate was probably about 54% success rate. You gotta keep in mind that for every proposal, a meeting planner, they might get 20, 30, depending on what their requirements are from their organization. They might be getting responses back from 20 or 30 different cities. And in our instance in Columbia, we compete a lot against, Charleston and Savannah, Greenville, Asheville. We have a lot of competition just right here in the Columbia market, but we do pretty good. We're about 54% success rate. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions? All right. Really appreciate it. It's a great information. I really appreciate your time. And I just, on behalf of our students, special thanks to you.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
All right. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right.